Um, this week we're talking about heroes. We're talking about celebrating and honoring where we see great lives lived, where we see great consciousness, where we see great action, where we see overcoming and overcoming limitations, overcoming suffering, overcoming circumstance. So we are getting ready to dive into this experience. I invite you to take a deep breath with me as we open our hearts and open our minds to what is here for us this day, what is here for us in this moment, what is here for us that we have not yet experienced, not yet understood, or not yet activated. There is support available to each one of us. Indeed, there is infinite support and much support that we have not yet tapped into. So I want to share this story. I was recently honored to do a memorial service for a beloved's mother. I actually know the daughter and the mother and this family and other relatives, and the grandmother made her transition. And so I was honored to go support this family in doing a sacred ceremony, a sacred outdoor graveside ceremony to honor this amazing woman of light who made her transition. Now, her husband had made his transition earlier, and she had been on the planet, dancing on the planet for some time after her husband lifted off. And so in preparing for doing a sacred service, a memorial, I just do some tuning in and some asking, like, what would you have your family hear? How can I support? How can I serve? And through this process, I was given a unity blessing booklet in which the daughter of the daughter of the mother who made her transition had written about her mother. And it was this beautiful passage. It was for Mother's Day. And she wrote about the impact of her mother on her life and her mother and her father. And as I'm reading this story, I'm actually pulled over at a gas station with my guitar, practicing the music near the site. And I'm reading this story, and I cannot read it without crying. And I'm not talking just like a little tear here or there. This story, these people were so beautiful. And the way this mama put into words how her mama has impacted her life when, she was still alive when she wrote this piece was just so moving. And in the story, she shared that her parents had a great love and that they really modeled and demonstrated higher love. They met in first grade, and the grandpa carried around their first grade picture in his wallet all of the time, and he would pull it out and flash it to people, showing people, this is my little sweetheart. And he was always caught saying sweet things or caught pulling her to dance, and they would play music in the basement and sing and play drums and just sneak kisses all the time. And it was just this incredible story that just reading it, I was like, oh, what this family must be experiencing today, because to witness that kind of love it's just magnificent, right? And I knew that we were celebrating a hero. And not just one hero, we were also celebrating a heroic relationship, a relationship that lasted years and that demonstrated such a strong, powerful, magnificent love that it birthed the family of love that I was witnessing. Now, if you knew this family is one of the kindest, most loving, most pure, as far as just a giving, loving, sacred consciousness families that I've ever met. And so what an honor it was to support them. And whenever I do a memorial service, I put into the service a bit of a prayer that the relationship continues, that we do not cease to talk to our beloveds, that in fact, we continue the experience of relationship with them and ask, instead of having the request that we may just let go of all of our suffering, that we have the request that we transform our ability to commune. We transform our ability to feel and to know each other, to embody each other, and to carry on the gifts that the one who has transitioned demonstrated. What a beautiful experience. What a sacred experience. What a heroic moment to honor for this family. I was recently also on a call with Edward Philhune from AG&T. He is the leader, the spiritual leader of our sister community, all of the Centers for Spiritual Living. And every week with AG&T Speaks, we have a different topic to explore. And Reverend Edward brought up the topic of calling upon others, calling upon the highest within us and the highest that we've seen demonstrated when we need support. And it was just a really beautiful conversation. He shared that he grew up Catholic, and I said, ditto right here. And he said, you know, a lot of people don't think about this, but in Catholicism, there is a lot of connecting with and setting intentions to be in tune with or to hear from people who have transitioned, people who are not in visible form. It's something that you might not think of a lot. You think of sometimes Catholics as being these very normal people that have a deep connection with Mary, normal people that talk about saints and talk about angels and talk to these people that are no longer in form, all the while seeming like they are participating in a very regular, normal religion. I can say that because I come from a family of Catholics. And so one of the things that I really hold on to from my Catholic upbringing, and this is going to sound funny and we're going to get a little funky today, but you know what? It's the month of Halloween. And so are you ready? Are you ready? Because it's the month of Halloween. So we're going to go there. So one of my great connections, if you know me, I've shared this with you, is St. Anthony. I feel like St. Anthony is one of my greatest buddies. And at any time when I tune in and I slow down and I need the consciousness that St. Anthony represents, which again, if you know me, you know I need that consciousness a lot. It is just right there for me. It is available and accessible. It is real, right? But how often do we fail to engage the support that is everywhere accessible and available to us? Because we have some mind idea that something is odd or something scientifically wouldn't make sense. It doesn't line up with our beliefs, so we don't even go there. Now, it doesn't matter to me what happens behind the scenes. So I am not concerned with why or how these demonstrations, you could say work, you could say are fulfilling or supportive. I'm not concerned about why. I'm okay with the unknown and the unproven. I'm okay if it's the power of the freedom form and they're right here with us. And when we say their names, they are right here sharing the same space, but whatever it is about the human condition, we can't see them, but they're right here. Can you feel that possibility? I am okay not knowing whether or not you emanate them when you call on them, whether or not when someone has made their transition, or maybe if they're still here, if you think of them so strongly, you can actually step into synchronicity or harmony or just the energy of whatever that person demonstrated, whatever that high demonstration is or that high consciousness. Have you ever felt that in yourself, that when you've, say, maybe felt a moment of fear and wondered if you could do something, you thought about someone who you know that was very strong and you almost just brought them to you? Maybe they're still alive right here, but you almost just like held their hand and you were like, I know what you would say to me. I know how you would be with me. I'm just going to almost just like step into your skin and feel this. And then all of a sudden you have what you need, or you have what it takes. So I'm not concerned about how this works. I am not concerned about whether it's our faith that activates that consciousness, that resource, that connection, or if when we move into our freedom form, if our energy goes back to the collective energy of God mind, and therefore it's accessible to us. Well, I don't think you can leave the collective energy of God mind, but if we just go back into this big, great pool of energy, and so whatever it is that we're seeking, that they demonstrated, that they mastered, is available and accessible to us when we tune in. Or if it's simply that it's all God and it's all in God and it's all available to us all the time, and it just takes a brain leap. And whatever this practice is, whether it's a practice from Catholicism, whether it's a practice from Hinduism or Buddhism or Judaism, whatever the practice is from, or New Thought, whatever it is, if that practice just resonated, and as I activated it, it opened part of my brain, part of my mind to access something that I otherwise stood back from or thought was inaccessible, that works for me too. It works for me if it's quantum physics, if it's about a non-local mind, if it's something that we have not yet discovered, an undiscovered scientific phenomena. I'm okay with the unknown and the unproven. And I won't let that hold me back from my spiritual practice of engaging this world as a spiritual universe in which I have human form, and in which there are ultimately magnificent resources available to me in each and every moment that I can discover, uncover, utilize, share, and express. So one of the things that I got from when Reverend Edward was sharing was this, that I had not thought before, but one of the things that I've been missing about my Aunt Eileen, who made her transition this year, and missing it, knowing that it's not like it was something that I always needed, but it's just something that, you know, when I was in her presence, I could not do stress. Like I knew where to go if I needed to decompress. I knew where to walk into if I needed to make something that seemed very complicated or very problematic or very difficult simple, not a big deal, and actually sometimes even easy. And I would go to her. That's where I would go if I needed to defragment this drive in Erin's mind that overcomplicates things. And so there has been some deep sadness about thinking, just, she's not there. She's been here for my whole lifetime, representing that peace is possible no matter what, that joy is possible no matter what, that lightheartedness is possible no matter what. And she certainly had things in her life that could have restricted peace and restricted her sense of lightness. But I don't believe she let that happen. And what I got from Reverend Edward was an expanded idea that's just so simple, but the way he phrased it was different for me. And he said, call on them. Call on them. And I thought, how would that be in my life if every time I got the sense that I would normally have accompanied by the desire to move towards her energy or towards her home, if I just said, Aunt Eileen, I'm calling on you, and took a few deep breaths and just trusted and knew and experienced the power of that relationship, experienced the power of that consciousness. We all have people that have in some way or another been heroes to us. That in some way or another in their lives and in their experiences, they demonstrated something that we find sacred. Now, whether they are alive or whether they're in their freedom form, are we willing to shift our practice to recognize that we are not alone, that we are in fact one, that this idea of oneness is real and tangible and can be a constant support to each one of us. But we have to take the steps to act like it. We have to take the steps to call upon it. I recently saw a little clip from a Drew Barrymore show. I guess it's a talk show that's going on. I just saw this little piece, and it was a special guest that she had on the show. And the guest was a medium who was able to talk to people who had made their transition. And so in this broadcast, Drew connected a panel of people to be able to ask a question. And the person that got to ask a question was this woman, a very young woman who had lost her husband. And the woman started sharing, and there was, incredible knowledge that was coming through that, how these things go. She couldn't have known. And so the woman was very, very touched. But in the end of the story, she was saying that there were two people who had made their transition, the woman's husband, and then also the mother, I believe, of the guy that this woman on earth had then joined her family with, and decided to raise their young kids together and start a business together. And what the intuitive said was that they helped in bringing you together. They're so happy that you're together, and they're here supporting you, and they're all around you. And then, Drew Barrymore was just kind of like, what? Like, I'm not opposed to believing things, and I'm open, but whoa. And then the woman started talking about Drew Barrymore and started sharing, so I've got this name of this person. Does this ring a bell? I've got this name of this person. Does this ring a bell? Does this ring a bell? And started telling her about people from her ex-husband's family that have made their transitions, that are there to support her, that are actually all around them and very close and connected with her family. And, she went through a whole list of different names and knew a lot of stuff. And you can just see Drew Barrymore blowing through the parts of her mind of belief or disbelief. And they get to this moment where they talk about someone that passed before she became part of that family that she was very close with. And it was the grandfather. And the intuitive said he was a very, very hardworking man. And Drew Barrymore said, yes, he really was a hardworking man. And then she shared, and he's telling you not to burn the candle at both ends. And people start giggling, and she goes, I'm doing overworking, and she explains how she operates. And the intuitive says, he says that he's here for you and he'll help you with this. So call on him. And of course, she was pretty emotional. But in that message that she was giving to him, that he was giving to her, he said that it's not something that he demonstrated when he was alive, that he didn't demonstrate that balance. But now that he is not in his body, he can help her, and he's here to help her demonstrate it while she's alive. Is there support beyond our sight? Is there support beyond our sight? So again, I encourage us to engage in that part of ourselves, not that's naive, but childlike in a great way that allows us to try something on without the analytical sabotage of how and why. Figuring out how and why something could work, but to allow ourselves to open up to experiencing the benefits of a spiritual practice that doesn't always have to know how and why, but it can instead invite in the experience and trust the experience. Are we willing to do that? Because the thinking mind will sabotage many a great thing. The thinking mind will restrict us. I took a trip to, now we're really getting into this. I took a trip to Brazil to visit John of God, a person who is a intuitive, I'll call it intuitive. And a lot of healings have come from this work that this person has allowed to come through them. Seemingly unhealable things have been healed. And what I had to do when I got there was just turn off my thinking brain. Because in my thinking mind, and this could sound bad because we don't want to be turning off, unity is very based on science and what's provable, right? It really is about practical Christianity, not about things that are not provable. But we know that Eric Butterworth says there are no miracles. There are no miracles. There is only an orderly outworking of the law. So how I see this is not so airy-fairy or woo-woo. I really see this as diving into and stepping into things that are just beyond our ability to understand, just beyond science's ability to explain. Anyway, one of the things that kind of blew my mind around the John of God experience was I had somehow come to the conclusion in my unity time that when we pass on and we reach our freedom form, that we kind of just go back into the energy of the collective, right? That we lose this personality, this person, we go back into the collective. But one of the things that happened there is that there is this whole philosophy around it of people coming back. So physicians that had died years ago, kind of people that are biblical people that would come back, saints that would come back to do this healing work. And there was actually an idea that they were active there at the place, still doing the work. And my logical mind had a hard time rolling with that. And I had to make a decision that I was now in the midst of a spiritual practice that was unfamiliar to me, that my logical mind, one, didn't understand. My logical mind, two, wasn't sure at all that it agreed with, and in fact, probably disagreed with it. But I had to ask myself, am I going to allow myself to receive something from this that is powerful, what is here for me? Because I am here by divine appointment. And so I did. I just let go of that analytical self so that I could experience the gift of someone else's spiritual practice, some other religion or practice. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like if you were with someone that has a spiritual practice that is very different from your own, do you believe you could still receive benefits and blessings from that practice, from that person? So if there was someone from a different religion and you call out one of the religions that you think is interesting, to say the least, like you think that's interesting, do you believe that you could have an experience of prayer with that person, or an experience in some sort of meditation, some sort of benevolent, good intended, good intention experience, and that you could get something, that you could be blessed? I believe that we can. I believe that our minds construct cages or open doors. Our minds construct cages or open doors. What will we cultivate for our mind? What are our spiritual beliefs anyway, but a best attempt to understand beyond our understanding, to understand the spiritual universe and the human condition beyond what we can prove or we can know. And that's okay, right? We're probably all wrong to some degree, and we're probably all right to some degree. Who cares? if the experience and the practice is expansive and benevolent, if there is positive intention, there is support beyond our sight. Susan Jeffers, in her book, Embracing Uncertainty, talks about heroes that are alive and heroes that have made their transition, and goes into the stories of Viktor Frankl and Ram Dass, goes into people that have overcome limitation and have the endurance to get beyond suffering and become models because of their hero mentality, their hero consciousness. People that have engaged in power demonstrations, and people have turned tragedies into opportunities. She says this from the book. She says, everything can be taken from man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. I think that may have been the quote from Viktor Frankl. She is floored by that statement, and she says that we have the choice to live in a state of spiritual well-being instead of a state of misery. There's no question that suffering is part of everyone's life. It's part of the human condition. And the wisest choice that we can make is to use that suffering as an opportunity to discover the very best of who we are and find the gifts in all. In doing so, we totally release ourselves from the role of victim and become an eager student of life. I have the blessing to be able to connect with a group every week called Love and Wellness, the Love and Wellness group. And when we meet, we have conversations. And the last conversation was so powerful because it was about demonstrating healing and about why dis-ease shows up. And it was this deep dive into spiritual practice and into spiritual ideas and into the places where we don't quite understand, we don't know, but we are unfolding ideas. And through bringing everyone's ideas together, through bringing everyone's experience and the diversity of experiences together, we moved through some major blocks in unity or in new thought that can keep people from healing. And we were able to really put voice to some higher ideas around physical healing. Now, Ram Dass, in Susan Jeffers' book, said that he got a stroke, and he shared the story, of his stroke. He's since made his transition, but she shared the story of him experiencing the stroke. And he said that it's not that he healed the stroke, but in the stroke there was his healing. So he didn't cure the stroke itself and the effects of the stroke, but he healed it. He healed it and it healed him. Are we willing to invite in the wisdom of heroes like Viktor Frankl, like Ram Dass, like those that are heroes to you, so that we can experience the benefits of their labor? So that we can gain from their wisdom? Or will we leave those resources untapped, unexplored, waiting? I just imagine if we were in our freedom form and we could help, and we saw people suffering, we saw people sitting there suffering, when we were right there going, wait, here, have it, take it, use it, look. how that would be and what we would want for each other. So can we, instead of building stories about difficulty and victimization, can we look to the highest potential for humanity that is demonstrated in everyday heroes? Can we benefit from the lives and the suffering of others? And can we make that part of our spiritual practice? To those that show us how we may live, to those who show us that we can overcome suffering, Susan Jeffers invites us to collect our own heroes. Collect your own heroes, she says. People you can look to when things are not going well in your own life. Will you remember that? In a moment where something is not going well in your own life, will you stop and engage in the possibility that there is support there that you haven't asked for yet? The master teacher offered this invitation to all of humanity. Call on me. Call on me. Not only on the man, but on the man that awakened to unity consciousness, to the knowing that we are all one, to the full knowing of the God resources available and accessible to each one of us. He also taught that you have the same potential, that you will do more, demonstrate more, activate more. Are we willing to call on the heroes, living and transitioned? Are we willing to become the heroes we're seeking? 1 week after I supported the family in that memorial, I did a pre-scheduled wedding, a wedding that was already scheduled for 1 week after that memorial. That wedding was of the mother who had been in a relationship for quite some time and finally set a date to marry her beloved. And because of current circumstances, her mother wasn't going to be able to be physically there, present. So the granddaughter was going to try to set up a Zoom room or a Zoom call, some way to FaceTime her in to a video call so that she could be there for this very, very small wedding with the family to celebrate her daughter, her baby girl's marriage ceremony. So she made her transition about a week before that. I was clear in supporting this marriage ceremony that these two beloveds that were now in their freedom form were pretty clear they were going to go to their baby girl's wedding together. That they would show up hand in hand from the same virtual portal, not separated by time or space, not lost, not gone, not in a care facility watching through an iPad, but hand in hand, right there present as everyday heroes. Namaste.